Well, Admiral, it's great to have you here, and you're the commander with the largest area of responsibility of any American military man. I'd like to ask you a little bit about that in a minute. But first, let me ask you a bit about leadership. And I've always been struck, if you look at the Army, they have a nice little short form of how they teach leadership. It's be, know, do. Be is understand yourself. Know is understand the experience of others. And do is go out and practice and do after action review. Does the Navy have something equivalent to that? Or how would you sum up your, in a bumper sticker, how would you sum up your ways of training people to be young leaders?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nye, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Be, know, do is not a bad bumper sticker in its own right. I don't know that the Navy has an equivalent, but when I was in my previous assignment as the Pacific Fleet Commander, I was asked about leadership in a blog interview at one point, and I coined the term credible leadership. And very similarly, credible leadership was not just being placed in a leadership position and a presumption that on the basis of rank or experience you're a leader, but rather the underpinning of that leadership that truly enables you to be credible with your subordinates, with your peers, and with your superiors. And I think that is the ability to have assimilated that experience and truly be able to put it to use.
What another, well, it's not another service, essentially the Marine Corps is almost part of the Navy, but another branch really has another phrase or short form of expressing this, which is that officers eat last, that you essentially earn the confidence of your followers by making sure that they're taken care of before you take care of yourself. How would you say the Navy handles that?
It's something about our Marine Corps that I greatly admire. In fact, I have often told a story of the Marines that served on USS Tripoli, one of the ships that I commanded, on an occasion when in very poor weather we were arriving in port after more than 4 months at sea, and we were putting our respective crews off, the Marines and the Navy sailors, and the Marines lived up to that eat last moniker. And in fact, I went off with the MEU commander last at the end of a very long day of Liberty Call, and I was immensely impressed with the Marines caring for the youngest Marines to ensure that they were off on liberty first. As you suggest, they bed them down first, and feed them first, and they themselves take cover last and eat last. I think it's something that the Navy, frankly, could learn from and grow better from.
The Chief of Naval Operations in 2007 had a new statement about the role of the Navy, which was to combine hard and soft power. And the argument was, and Admiral Stavridis has also made a good deal of this, the argument was that, yes, we're going to win our battles. We obviously have to be good at hard military power. But a lot of what the Navy's about is actually soft power. It's attracting others. And a great classic example of this was tsunami relief in the Indonesia in 2004. But your huge area of responsibility is a great place where you have to figure out how you combine hard and soft power. How do you train your people for that, to lead in that context?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question and a great issue of the day. And I don't think that there's any area of responsibility that demands the appropriate use of both hard and soft power more than the Asia Pacific and the Pacific Command AOR. I think the best illustration right now that we have is an annual event termed Pacific Partnership. USNS Mercy, one of our hospital ships, takes place or executes this every other year, and in between we bring another type of platform. But in this, we do humanitarian assistance in the form of engineering, medical, dental, and veterinary care. And we often exchange with doctors with their counterpart host nation doctors. We usually execute this over several months and through 6 or 7 nations in the Asia Pacific. We've been focusing on Southeast Asia and Oceania predominantly. I think, in terms of training, this will make us better prepared to respond to the next disaster. This has enabled us to learn to work with non-government organizations better than we had the ability to do even back in the tsunami relief days of 2004. And it's helped frame for us the type of relief that we need to be prepared to take into a disaster. And we're certainly not strangers to disaster in the Asia Pacific. In fact, we respond to one on the order of about every 8 weeks, and most recently responded to the typhoon that passed across the Philippines just some weeks ago.
Which means your forces have to know a lot more than just how to use force.
Absolutely, and again, we practice it, but the humanitarian assistance in the form of soft power really develops, I think, the skill sets that the sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines can then take into an actual disaster response, whether that's in the command structure of working NGO to military, or whether that's in the form of relief that they give the people of the host nation.
I've also felt that military-to-military contacts and training foreign military is another form of soft power. That as we work with others, we can attract them. And you are dealing in your area with one of the great questions of this century, the question of the rise of China. And I've got a book that's coming out in a month or two called The Future of Power. It's about what role will China play and the Americans play in the world as well as in the Pacific. And the thrust of my argument is that China is going to grow. I think we'll actually stay more powerful than they. But managing the rise of China is a neat balancing act. We've got to not only be on our guard, but if we're too much on our guard and we basically create a self-fulfilling prophecy of conflict, then we're not managing the situation well. So we have to figure out, how do you blend hard and soft power when you have a rising power? And I'm sure this has been on your mind for some time.
Well, I have both responsibilities. I have the responsibility to manage the military-to-military relationship with China and improve it, which has proven to be difficult thus far, and also to be prepared in the event that the ability to bring China out as a constructive partner should fail sometime in the future. I think, as you suggest, the military-to-military relationships that we sustain, the ability to cross-pollinate the United States military with other militaries in the region, educate them in our schools and be educated in theirs, are all elements of soft power that have proven over time to be very effective in meeting the security needs of the region, at least giving us elements of trust in one another that we wouldn't otherwise have. And I think, exactly as you suggest, it's not a foregone conclusion that we have the relationship with China headed in one direction or another as yet. But I think it's a very important balancing act to ensure that at the end of this, there's no conflict and we're constructive partners, both contributing to the security of the Asia Pacific.
Which makes the job of a military leader in the Pacific doubly hard, because you've got two things to do simultaneously.
Well, I would hope that we've been well trained for this, and I'll do my very best, and I'll also read your book with great interest, Dr. Nye. Well, maybe it'll help me in getting the balance.
I will make sure I get you a copy. One of the problems I've noticed is that in military-to-military contacts, even though they're tremendously important for the reasons you've said, it's one of the first things to go when tension rises. Arms sales to Taiwan, next thing you know, the Chinese cut off mill-to-mill contacts. How do you protect against that? I mean, a few years ago there was a carrier visit scheduled for, I think, for Hong Kong, and Chinese got angry about something, cut it off. How do you keep those military to military contacts going when there's the first thing to go when they're looking for a diplomatic signal they're trying to send?
Yeah, thanks. We haven't been entirely successful in that. After all, China gets a vote. I would offer that the United States, on more than one occasion, has used military-to-military contacts in the same way. We lost about a decade of relationship with Indonesia as a consequence of mill-to-mill ties that were suspended because of the human rights abuses following the Timor-Leste challenges in Indonesia. So it's something that I think is an educational process, not just for the United States, given our own propensity at times to do it, but for the counterpart militaries, and the PLA is a good example. As you suggest, they've shut the switch on mill-to-mill ties frequently. And in my dialogue with them, we try to not only emphasize the values that we place on mill-to-mill and why, but also on the fact that military-to-military relations and dialogue extend through a whole menu of items. There is mill-to-mill in areas of common interest like humanitarian assistance, and then there's mill-to-mill at the very high end of, exchanges in principles of combat power. And in order to maintain a mill-to-mill dialogue ongoing, I think it's important to select from that menu the items that we value and can broach those periods of disagreement between governments and disagreements between militaries. We think there's great value in mill-to-mill dialogue being a continuum.
Yeah. A few years ago, when I was dean of the Kennedy School, we had a program here where we brought Chinese senior colonels from the PLA and American military officers together in a 2-week program to discuss basically the world. It's not that we were going to convert anybody, but we could put some scratches on their minds. The world looks a little different after you have human contact.
Well, I appreciate your doing that. I think that at the colonel level it's particularly important. In my experience, the People's Liberation Army is very selective about who they allow foreign interaction with. And it's a very small cadre of officers. The more often that we can bring the general purpose forces out of the PLA and into contact with their American counterparts, I think the better.